May 27th, 2015, 6 in the morning, the Baur, Zurich's most exclusive hotel. $1,000 a night, overlooking the lake. Swiss police storm the lobby. 7 men in suits are arrested before breakfast. They are the most powerful executives in world football. 11 years later, one man has turned that crime scene into a $300 billion empire and crowned himself king of the biggest sporting event in human history. This is not a story about soccer. This is a story about how one man learned to control the only thing 211 countries actually agree on. Before 2015, FIFA's corruption was an open secret. The US Department of Justice alleged more than $150 million in bribes tied to World Cup marketing rights. Attorney General Loretta Lynch called it, and I'm quoting directly, rampant, systemic, and deep-rooted. 31 people would plead guilty. President Sepp Blatter resigned. FIFA needed someone who could look like reform while keeping the machine running. Enter Gianni Infantino, a soft-spoken Swiss-Italian lawyer, virtually unknown outside football's back offices. In February 2016, he made one promise: we will restore the image of FIFA and the respect of FIFA. He won. What happened next wasn't reform, it was expansion of everything. The World Cup itself, from 32 teams to 48, from 64 matches to 104, from one host nation to 3. The United States, Mexico, and Canada, kicking off June 11th, 2026, closing July 19th in New Jersey. The Club World Cup, from 7 teams to 32, delivering a $2 billion windfall last year alone, and a 33% bonus increase for Infantino personally, on top of an estimated $6 million annual package. This summer's tournament is projected to bring in $8.9 billion. That's not just a record for football. It's roughly double what the entire 2024 Paris Olympics earned. $3.9 billion from broadcasting, $3 billion from ticketing and hospitality, $1.8 billion from sponsors paying to be the only soft drink, the only beer, the only airline you see inside the stadium walls. But here's what almost nobody outside FIFA's inner circle understands. This growth isn't just business success. It's how Infantino built something close to absolute control over a sport played in every country on Earth. Here's how the system actually works. FIFA is structured as a non-profit, but it behaves like a single product empire because almost all its revenue comes from one event, once every 4 years, the Men's World Cup. That revenue doesn't just sit in Zurich. It flows back out. Strategically, through a program called FIFA Forward, national federations receive funding, up to $8 million per country per 4-year cycle. Poorer nations use it to build stadiums, train coaches, develop youth leagues. It sounds like generosity. It functions like patronage. Every national federation, giant or tiny, gets exactly 1 vote for FIFA president. China, 1 vote. Samoa, 1 vote. And many of those federations depend on FIFA's money simply to function. French journalist Simon Bolle, in his book FIFA Connection, describes this bluntly. Money is the first criterion of the entire system. And the president, he argues, doesn't even try to hide it. The clearest demonstration of this power came in 2021. 12 of Europe's richest clubs tried to break away and form their own competition, the European Super League. Direct challenge to FIFA's monopoly. Infantino's response was 2 words: you're in or you're out. No threats of lawsuits, no negotiation, just a simple fact. Any player who joined the breakaway league would be banned from playing in the World Cup. The Super League collapsed within 48 hours. No player, not even the biggest stars on earth, was willing to risk missing the one tournament that defines a footballer's legacy. That's not a sports federation. That's leverage no government, no league, no union on the planet can currently match. So who's actually paying for all of this? Host cities, for one. Contracts signed back in 2018. Before most current mayors and governors even took office, force host cities to absorb tens of millions in costs, including FIFA-mandated security. Fans, for another. Dynamic pricing has pushed ticket prices into territory previous World Cups never touched, with the bulk of that revenue flowing straight back to FIFA, not the host cities selling the tickets. According to a recent survey by the American Hotel and Lodging Association, nearly 80% of hotels in the 11 U.S. host cities reported bookings tracking below their initial forecasts. The promised tourism boom may not materialize the way cities were told it would. Meanwhile, FIFA says its reinvestment into the sport has grown sevenfold since 2016, totaling around $5 billion. Short-term pain, long-term growth for football worldwide. Whether that math works out for the city footing the security bill is a separate question. In the aftermath of the 2015 scandal, there was a real opportunity to change FIFA from the inside. Portuguese jurist Miguel Poyares Maduro was appointed to lead a new independent governance committee tasked with enforcing due diligence and political neutrality in decisions like World Cup hosting. By 2017, FIFA had fired him and two of his committee members. Maduro's read on what happened is direct. FIFA, he says, operates as a political cartel with power concentrated almost entirely in the president. The man at the top determines who operates at every level of football. That concentration of power produced its starkest result in late 2024 when FIFA forced member nations to vote on the 2030 and 2034 World Cup hosts in the same meeting with a simple yes or no choice for each. Saudi Arabia, a major financial backer of FIFA under Infantino, was the sole bidder for 2034, and it won. For Infantino, this World Cup is the ultimate test of his entire thesis. Speaking to investors at the Milken Institute in May, he laid out the math himself. Global football, he said, generates roughly $300 billion a year. 70% of that comes from Europe. The United States accounts for barely 3%. His pitch to American investors was blunt. If the US soccer market grew to even 30% of Europe's scale, that alone would represent a $100 billion a year opportunity. That's the real bet behind the summer spectacle. Not just hosting a tournament, but using it to permanently rewire how Americans relate to the sport. This May, Infantino announced he'll run for a third four-year term in 2027, an election where, as things stand, he's expected to face no real opposition at all. FIFA says it has reformed. It points to its independent ethics committees, its expanded development funding, its insistence that all 211 member nations now choose where the World Cup goes. Its critics say that's exactly the problem. A system built on dependency doesn't need to silence dissent. It just needs everyone to need the money more than they need to ask questions. In a few weeks, 48 nations will walk onto pitches across 3 countries, chasing the only trophy that means anything in the sport's actual history. Almost none of them will be thinking about Zurich in 2015. But the man who decided how this tournament would look, who gets paid, who gets to host, who gets banned for stepping out of line, will be watching from the best seat in the house. And next year he's expected to win unopposed again.